nicely. It's comfortable, all right? And ceramic plates are going to be your best quality plates. They're going to be the lightest material. And so when you have a plate carrier, you're going to have something like this, and it's normally placed in through the bottom, not the top, and certainly you're not fitting more than one of these bad boys in there. To try to stuff another plate in would be a joke. So no, if you're out on the fly in real life, you don't just pick up 13 plates and just go, Ain't happening in real life, all right? Mark, can you testify? Nobody's sticking in plates like that. All right, okay. Yes, question. Yeah. All right, now, I'm going to show you another kind of plate right here. What does that sound like to y'all? What kind of material? It's metal. This is a steel plate. Steel plates are a lot heavier. You can see it's flat, so it's not super comfortable, especially if you're a lady. It's very uncomfortable. And all around, they're just not as effective, but some people do use them. This is what I did have until Mark gave me his old plates, and now I have something nice, all right? But once again, you're only going to use one in the front and one in the back, and that is it. So that's a plate carrier in the modern sense. Now, what these plate carriers are designed to do, and here you go. We're going to have the next slide. The three things that plate carriers are meant to do. Like we already said, protect vitals, protect your vital organs. We talked about that. Now, the second thing that they need to do in order to keep you alive is they need to stop fragmentation. Now, I know that sounds like a crazy term, but bear with me because it's relevant. So, if you have a solid piece of metal and a bullet hits that piece of metal, okay, what happens to the bullet? It's got to go somewhere, okay? Your armor may have stopped it, but if you just have a solid piece of metal, when the bullet makes contact, it basically explodes into a bunch of pieces. Okay, so bear with me here. Here's your chin. Here's where the bullet exploded. Where do you think some of those pieces may go? Into your head, through your neck. Good thing or bad thing, do you think? Very bad thing. Okay, so in order for a plate to be effective in stopping the bullet, it can't just simply stop the bullet from hitting your heart. It also has to stop all of those pieces. And so that's called fragmentation. A plate carrier is meant to catch all of those stray pieces that may go flying afterwards. So not just the initial impact you're kept alive from, but the fallout of it is stopped too. And the final thing, as we often see in movies and real life, is it's meant to carry extra gear or ammo, just like we have on here, all right? Those are the three things that plate carriers are intended to do. Now. What about righteousness? Okay, so that's what a real plate carrier is for. That's what a soldier uses it for, but how is righteousness for the Christian like a breastplate? Let me give you a definition of righteousness, and then we'll get into it. So here's the definition of righteousness. It means being in right standing with God. Being in right standing with God. Now, if there's something we know about God, it's this, that He is eternal, and significantly, He's perfect. He's holy, as the Bible would call Him. Eternal, and He's holy. Now, if there's two things that we are not like God, we are not eternal like we all had a beginning. We may have an eternal soul that will go on to live after we die, but we all had a beginning. God has existed forever. And also, unlike God, we are not righteous. The Bible says that we're sinners. The Bible actually says there's none righteous, no, not one at all. But so righteousness, if it means to be in right standing with God, ultimately what it's talking about is you obey His commands. You are like Him. You are holy. You do the things He would do. You say the things He would say. That's righteousness. And that's the thing that we struggle with doing the most. But when you think about the belt of truth last week, if God is the one who decides what is true, doesn't He also get to decide what's right and wrong as well? If God's the source of truth, then He also has to be the source of righteousness, holiness, what's right, what's good in the world. He's the source of that too. So to be righteous, you've got to look just like Jesus. How many of us are bad at that? But let's talk about the three things that righteousness does for the Christian, and I hope I can really help y'all to get this right. The three things that righteousness does for you as a Christian. Let's go ahead and go to that next slide. Number one, righteousness protects your heart. Now, in this case, I'm not talking about your physical heart. I'm talking about your heart as a person, your soul, okay? Your center of emotions. When the Bible uses the word heart, it's not referring to your physical organ so much as it is your morality, who you are as a person. The Bible protects your heart. I have a verse I want to share with y'all on that note, and it's Proverbs chapter 13, verse 6. Here's what it says about righteousness protecting the heart. It says, righteousness keepeth him that is upright in the way. And that word keep actually means to guard. Righteousness guards and protects those, who are upright in their way. As they go about life, righteousness guards them. It says, but wickedness overthrows the sinner. So righteousness, when you are living your life the way God intended you to live, it protects you from the pain, the suffering, the regret, the despair, and yes, even the death-incurring consequences of sin. Listen, when you look out at our culture today, you can see people and politicians and celebrities who are not living in righteousness, and they are miserable. They're not happy. They turn to everything they can possibly turn to try to make themselves happy because they are miserable. The effects of sin have weighed on them and their life. You may be happy in the moment partaking in a sin, but once the consequences of that sin happen to you, you're no longer happy. Now you're hurt. Now you're wounded. Now your morality begins to get twisted around as you're trying to say that the most important thing in life is I didn't do whatever makes me happy, and then the things that make you happy in the moment end up making you miserable later. The less you are like Jesus, the more miserable you're going to be because you are not made to live in sin. You're not made to live according to your way. You were meant to live and look like Jesus. When God first made mankind, the Bible says He made us in His image. It's not talking about we physically look like God because God does not have a physical body like we do. What it meant is we're meant to emulate or look like Him in our behavior. We're meant to be small imitators of Him. But if there's one thing we're awful at doing, that we don't seem capable of doing, it's actually imitating the behavior of God. We don't do it. From the time that we're born until the time that we're adults, we just seem to always want to sin. So the Bible tells us then, if that's our issue, is that we're all sinners, that we're not righteous, then how can a Christian put on the breastplate of righteousness if righteousness is the one thing we can't do? Let me explain it to you this way. So we know that God says to put on the breastplate of righteousness, but we also know that we're sinners. So if we try to be righteous and be good on our own, here's what that would look like. Going back to here's my backup plate carrier right here. There's a lot of people in the world, they know that God says we need to be holy. There's right and wrong, and we need to do what He says. And there's a lot of people who have this idea in their head that, hey, if I simply act good enough, and I do more good than bad, then maybe that'll get me to heaven. So in order to be righteous, I've got to try really hard to do the things that God says. And so what I would equivalent that to is like somebody rummaging around in the trash and saying, okay, I got my plate carrier, but I need to put on the breastplate of righteousness. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut me out. I'm going to create my own righteousness. I'm going to work really hard. Yeah, man, I got it cut out. Let's see. If I just cut it at the right angle, if I just go to church enough, if I just say, I love you to my parents enough and don't disrespect them, if I, help that old lady across the street, then I'm being righteous, right? I have created righteousness. I am giving it my best shot, God. Okay, here we go. I'm going to put on my breastplate of righteousness. Look at that. Man, I've been such a good person recently. You know, I've even started following Christian influencers on social media. In fact, I listened to Christian music the other day. That made me feel real righteous. And so you keep trying your hardest to do all the things that you know are right and avoid all the things that you know are wrong. And it's like you're stuffing your plate carrier with trash that's not good enough. But you convince yourself, that's all I need to do. I just need to try harder. And if I try hard enough, then one day I'll be righteous. And before you know it, this is what you think you're going to go out there and survive the battle in. Serious question. Is this going to keep you alive? Is this going to protect your vital organs? One punch, and I promise I could probably break your rib. All right, this ain't going to do nothing. You want to bet? All right, I'm just kidding. We'll do it later. We'll test it later. This is you when you try to be righteous on your own. This is what you look like. You look like a soldier going out to battle with cardboard. You're going to fail. You cannot do it. So you're like, okay, Tyler, then what's the point of this lesson? Like, why don't we just go home then? Like, well, what's the point? Now, the point is this. Y'all listen. Your righteousness does not come from you. Who does it come from? Jesus. If I could explain it to you this way, y'all listen, please. No cutting up. I'll take points off your team, starting at 500. Listen. It's serious. You could never be righteous on your own. No matter how much you tried, you could never do it. That's why Jesus had to die for us. He had to live the righteous life we were incapable of living. Die on the cross to take the punishment we deserved, and then rise again to prove that He had power over death. And now, if you believe in and receive His forgiveness, it's not that you become righteous. You receive His righteousness. The day that you get saved is the day that you take off the nonsense, the good works that you were trying to earn your own righteousness. When you realize that's not possible, you throw that aside and you come to Jesus, and He gives you His righteousness. And He places His holiness as a covering for your life. He makes it possible for you to do the things that you do not want to do naturally. He makes it possible for you to live in a way that is not natural for humans to want to live in. So it starts with getting saved. Listen, the armor of God is useless to a person if they don't have a relationship with Jesus. You can't put it on. You don't have access to it. It comes from the divine armory in heaven, and unless you know the armorer, the one who made it, then you can't have it. You're just trying to create a mimic that's not going to be anything for you. So righteousness starts by getting saved and having a relationship with Jesus. So it protects your heart. It keeps you from going astray. It keeps you from getting stuck in sin. That righteousness is a protection, not just for your eternal soul, but it's a protection for you in this life. Walk in the ways of God, and listen, you're going to avoid so much heartache, suffering, and brokenness and sin. It'll mess you up in ways you wish you could take back. Righteousness will protect you from it. But every day as a Christian, just because we're saved, does that mean that, okay, I'm saved, now I can walk out without my armor on? No, you're still going to get shot at. And so there's some Christians, listen, they wake up, it's been weeks, maybe even months since they've last talked to God. They're weak in their spiritual walk with Christ, and certain sins start coming into their life. The devil's getting a hold of the weaknesses in their armor, and he starts shooting at them and taking advantage of them. And listen, every day you need to wake up and say, God, help me to put on the breastplate of righteousness today. I know that I'm saved, and I know I'm your child, God, but God, I need your help to avoid the sins that I committed yesterday. I need your help to get rid of these habits in my life that are hurting me. I need your help to help me to cover up this exposed part of my life that I know Satan's taking advantage of. God, I need to put my plate on today. Every day we need to do that. Every day we need to come to God and seek His help, and He will. Now the last two things, and these things are going to be a lot quicker. Last two things that righteousness does for the Christian. We know it protects your heart, but here's the second thing it does. It protects your character. protects your character. What do I mean by that? Remember how I said the plate doesn't just stop the bullet, it catches the fragments too? Okay, but let's say that you aren't living in a certain sin, but you get accused of it by somebody else. Y'all know that there's a lot of people that get accused of doing things they didn't do? We probably know people who've been accused of doing stuff they didn't do. You have most likely, if you have siblings at all, have been accused of doing stuff you didn't do. Now, where it gets more serious is when you become an adult and the accusations aren't, hey, Tommy stole the cookie. He ate 3 cookies, Mom. He was only supposed to eat 2. No. The accusation becomes, so-and-so raped me. So-and-so hurt me. So-and-so abused me. So-and-so did this. So-and-so did that. So-and-so. And then there's all kinds of things that you can be accused of in this life. And listen, if you are a person, a Christian, who is walking in the righteousness that you're supposed to be, it's going to make it a lot harder for people to falsely accuse you of things that you've never done before. See, one of the truths of life is, listen, your reputation will always precede you. If you are known to be a dishonest, lazy, lack of self-control kind of a person, then when you get accused of doing things that match the stuff you've done in the past, and even if it's not true, do you think anybody's going to believe you? No. Because listen, there's a lot of famous people, there's a lot of famous, even NFL players, for example, that they'll go around and sleep around with all these women. Y'all listen, they go around and sleep around with I'm about to take points off for real. You need y'all to be quiet over there. It's your last warning. They'll sleep around with all these women, and then one of them will come out and say, he raped me. And it doesn't matter if it's true or not. Because for that man who's sleeping around, everybody's going to believe it. If you're willing to sleep around and commit all this other sexual sin, what's really going to stop you from committing one more? Nobody's going to believe him. Listen, I'm not trying to defend men who actually do those things. They need to be punished. I'm talking about yourself. Think about things that you've been accused of that you were so offended by. Maybe it was by your parents, maybe it was by your siblings, maybe it was by your friends. And ask yourself, hey, am I known to be a person of good, righteous character? Would people have believed me if I was already acting right in my past? There's a very good chance they would have. In fact, in the Bible, we don't have time to go over it tonight, but to give you the verse, y'all can go and read it later. Genesis chapter 39. Go and read that chapter on your own time. And it's the story of Joseph. Joseph was a right man. He was a righteous man. Everything he did, it says he had integrity, that he didn't allow himself to sin. He didn't allow himself to cheat anybody. And it says at that time in his life, in Genesis 39, that Joseph was actually one of the highest servants of one of the biggest men in the land of Egypt. Basically runs the second in command's house when he's not there. And his boss's name was Potiphar, and it says that Potiphar's wife was a loose woman, and she wanted to sleep with Joseph. Now, Joseph, being a righteous man, she came to him and said, sleep with me. He said, no way. I can't betray my God and do this evil thing. What kind of person would I be? So he denies her, and she keeps coming back, and every time he has an opportunity to sleep with this woman, he says no. And then he gets accused by her of raping. Now, here's the deal. In that culture, if a person is accused of rape, especially when it's a high official's wife who's been accused of rape, guess what would happen to the rapist? Killed. Now, Potiphar knew Joseph's character. He knew the kind of man that Joseph was. And even though he can't just let nothing happen because this is his wife who's saying this, and if he does nothing, it makes him look weak, he doesn't believe that Joseph did it because he didn't put Joseph to death. Instead, Joseph is sent to a prison and he's held there, and from what we understand about Joseph's time in prison, he wasn't even mistreated there. He actually got a chance to be the leader of the prison. So Joseph's character literally protected him from the fallout. He didn't just merely avoid the sin, he avoided the false accusation because of how righteous he was with God. So righteousness doesn't just protect your heart It protects your character from accusations. And finally, the last thing that righteousness does for the Christian is it backs up truth. Remember how I said your belt is where you put ammo, it's where you stick your gun at, it's all this other stuff? Well, for the Christian, knowing the truth in your head means nothing if you don't actually obey the truth that you know. What good is it to say, I know the Bible is true, and to not actually do the things it tells you to do? In James chapter 2, we're going to look at verses 18 to 20, and here is what it says about those who know the truth and don't do it. He says, yea, a man may say, thou hast faith, and I have works. He goes, show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show you my faith by my works. He goes, thou believest that there is one God? Thou doest well. Good job, you who believe in God. He goes, but the devils also believe in God, and they tremble. And so he says in verse 20, he says, but wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? Here's the idea that he's getting at. Do works save you and get you to heaven? Yes or no? No. But here's what works do. They prove whether or not you have been saved. Because when Jesus comes into your life and he gives you a new heart, he's going to start making you more like him. You're not going to be perfect, but you are going to start looking more and more like Jesus, doing the things that Jesus would do. And if there's no evidence of your behavior changing, then what James is saying is, then listen, you don't actually know the truth at all. You may have the truth, you may know it in your head, but you don't really believe it in your heart. Otherwise, it would have changed your heart. And one more verse in just John 14:21, and Jesus had this to say about obedience. He says, he that has my commandments and keeps them, means you do them, he it is that loveth me. And he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him. He that knows the truth and obeys the truth, that's the person that truly believes in me. Listen, there's a lot of people who know the story of Jesus in their head. They may even know John 3:16 in their head. They know that their goodness can't get them to heaven. They know that they need to come to Jesus and ask for forgiveness of sin, but they don't actually do it. There's a lot of people who believe that if I just repeat a prayer that somebody else says, as long as I said the magic words, then I'm good. That's not how it works. You have to believe in your heart that Jesus is God. He lived a perfect life, and he rose again after dying to save you. And you have to ask him for that forgiveness. And unless you did that with your heart, you meant it, then you're not saved. While you knew the truth here, you didn't believe it here. And the fact that there's so many people who say they know Jesus, but by their actions, they deny him. These are people who claim to know the truth, but yet they have no righteousness that shows that God has changed them whatsoever. So my question in finishing the lesson here tonight is, do you have the breastplate of righteousness? Or do you know that you are saved? If you say, I know that I'm saved, Pastor Tyler, that's awesome, I'm glad. Now the next question is, are you putting it on every day? When you go to school, when you go to work, when you go to hang out with friends, when you go home, when you get to your house, how do you talk with your parents and your family? Does it seem like you have a breastplate of righteousness on when you get on social media and video games? Or are you living how you want to live, saying, okay, Jesus, thank you for saving me, but now I'm going to kind of take this off. It's a little heavy, and I just kind of want to do me for a little bit. Where are you at in your relationship with God? Maybe you're saved, but maybe you have some work you need to do. Maybe you have some sin you need to repent of and say, God, help me to put this breastplate of righteousness on every day and to not go out unprotected. All right, let me say a final closing word of prayer, and we'll be dismissed. Dear God, Thank you so much for your word. Thank you so much, God, for giving us and offering us this breastplate of righteousness that, God, we could never have on our own. And God, it's not us that need to try harder. God, it's simply coming to you and asking for your help. God, it's you who changes our behavior. It's you who protects our hearts. You are our righteousness, God. And I pray that if there's anybody here that's not saved, or they don't know if they're saved, God, that they would stop waiting around. And God, they would make sure that they have accepted you as their Savior so that they can receive this forgiveness of sin. And God, for the rest of us who are saved, God, help us to stay in communion with you. Help us to pray to you every day. Help us to seek your help every day, God, because we by ourselves can do nothing. We're helpless. And God, we need your help to be like you. Help us as Christians to acknowledge our flaws, to repent of our sin, and God, every day